Brandon Woodruff throws another session to live hitting, and he continues to look great. And maybe multiple innings on the agenda for him soon to come. That and more coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, these Locked On Brewers, I try to get it after Murphy talks with the media down at the spring training during the Midway, and he relays any information or whatever, gives us an update on stuff. And the chatter today is Brandon Woodruff. Good to have you along, everybody. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Great to have you along and talking daily Brewers baseball with you. Brandon Woodruff threw a session for a third time, 30 pitches, came off the mound, and he was all smiles once again. No pain, going back to review the tape of his performance, and said afterwards that he's going to hopefully ramp it up to a couple of innings in his next turn. Now, he's been there for 2 weeks, and it was like 2 weeks ago today that he had his first session out there, and it went good. And he had another one, and then he had another one on Thursday. And all three has been, number one, pain-free. He's coming back from the shoulder surgery. And, you feel like he's humming the ball pretty well. Great news. Now, again, we're going to let him take his own timetable. Not going to worry about him making the opening day roster or not, or what have you. But all indications are Woody, as expected with that guy, are off to a great start down and in spring training. So that is great to hear. Also, I've been getting a lot of messages about Ryan McMahon, who seems to be like the top third baseman out there who's still with a team that might be on the trade block. Now, Ryan McMahon plays third base for the Colorado Rockies. Nice hitter, made the All-Star team for a first time last year, 30 years old, under contract through 2027 with the Rockies right now. He's under contract through the next 3 seasons to a tune of about $44 million. 3 years, $44 million. I say that's very affordable for the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, he's never hit above 250, but always seems like a clutch hitter. And the last 4 seasons, he's hit over 20 home runs. It's the kind of guy I'd like to see over at third base. I don't think he's got an upside at this point. He's 30 years old. I think this is the best we're going to see out of Ryan McMahon. Like, he's never going to be a 300 hitter and hit me 35, 40 home runs. But would the Brewers be willing to trade for a Ryan McMahon, knowing that there might be other options down the line in the farm system at third base? That would be the biggest question mark. But fit on this team, I'd love to have Ryan McMahon on this team. At what cost? I don't know. Obviously, would probably cost you a prospect, maybe 2, depending. But Ryan McMahon, if he's not on the trade block already with Colorado, and if he gets off to a great start, because the Rockies are expected to be bad again this year, all right? If he gets off to a good start, he will be on the trade block, and he'll be the subject of a lot of trade rumors out there, as most players are who are in that type of financial situation. 4 years, 3 years left, $44 million. Very affordable for a productive all-star third baseman. Would I love to see the Brewers get on that train? Absolutely. 3 years, $44 million. I'm on that. Love to see him play third base. Now, I'm telling you, is Ryan McMahon going to take us to the promised land? No, but he'd give the Brewers much needed pop over at third base. Much needed pop. And I think this team needs some of that. And at AmFam Field, who knows? Get a 25, 30 home runs for the season. But I've been getting some notes, and there's been some rumblings. Would the Brewers be interested in Ryan McMahon since he's, the team's not saying that. The Rockies aren't saying that. But the general feeling around Major League Baseball is Ryan McMahon might be on the trade block in Colorado. And Brewers could use the third baseman. We'll see what comes out of that. I don't know if you've been watching any of the highlights of Chourio, but Chourio really is a man among boys at spring training right now. You watch every at bat. So far, 4 for 10. Again, I don't read a lot in the spring training numbers and all that, but just looking the way he handles himself, man. Saw the other night him put one in the gap. Stuff he did last year. Chourio, I'm really so interested to see what type of step up he takes in his career in his second season. 20 years old. And, at 20 years old, physically, you're just going to you're going to get stronger. He's not fully matured physically by any means. And I'm sure off season, played ball. We'll see what type of step, but I'm not putting any pressure on him, but I'm anxious to see what Chourio brings to the table to follow up what he did last year, because he's got the mental game of playing a Major League Baseball or playing pro sports down. He's got the right attitude for it. He's got the confident ability out there. He's got all the makeup. And we'll see physically where he is from last year to this year and what that translates on the field for Jackson Chourio. I would think only great things for a guy like that. Great, great things. Or as I saw somebody put on Twitter today, maybe they should sign him to a long-term contract. Thankfully, the Brewers had the foresight, and it has worked out for them. So far, so good. Speaking of, we've been talking a lot about the third base infield spot. I see today Oliver Dunn is playing third base, leading off. Capra, who my last podcast was on, hasn't played since then, but he's at shortstop today. He's 4 for 10. Dunn 4 for 11. Caleb Durbin, off to a slow start down there. He's manning second base today. He's 1 for his first 12. So Dunn is playing third base, Durbin at second, Capra at short. Again, don't read too much into anything. Dunn in the leadoff spot. And, I want Dunn in the leadoff spot. I want these guys getting as many at-bats as possible and to see what we got here with all three of these guys. But we'll also answer some questions a little bit later on that you guys have off some of the comments you put on YouTube, on our YouTube page. So things are sailing along for Woodruff. Chourio doing Chourio things out there. And the Ryan McMahon talk, somebody asked me too, I don't know if the Brewers are in any trade talks. We don't even know if McMahon is on the trade block at this point, but he might be. And considering where the Rockies are, and they have him under control for 3 years with him signing a contract extension, I think it was 6 years, $70 million a couple of years ago, that bodes for any trade makers out there. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. When we come back, talk a little bit about Conor Thomas. Brewers facing Adames for a first time, even though it's spring training. He was in the lineup today. We'll get to that. And also your questions coming up very soon. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. This episode brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. FanDuel. Get on all the NBA action right now. Full card of NBA coming up on Friday night. College basketball all weekend long. And, of course, the NHL. FanDuel. Live betting is the way to go with FanDuel throughout the game. So you don't miss the opening tip, or if you miss the opening tip-off and you still want to get on the action, let's say, you're busy doing something, 6:30 tip-off, and it's like, wow, I forgot to go on the Celtics tonight. And you look, and the Celtics are down 14-11. Well, the chances are your odds are going to be a little bit better than they were before the game if you still like the Celtics. I love using FanDuel's live betting. Live betting feature keeps every moment of the game exciting. I love it, especially on colleges on Saturdays. I'll say this, though. Watch out for those road favorites on Saturday. They could be deadly, but those home favorites, when they get down early, I love it. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 into your account in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins, if it cashes in. If it cashes in, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets right into your account. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. FanDuel.com, your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Brewers have a Rule 5 pick, first time since Gus Varlin a couple of years ago, and he didn't stay too long with the Brewers, like the middle of May. And you know the deal with Conor Thomas or any Rule 5 pick, if you pick him off somebody's roster, if he doesn't stay on your roster for the entire season, well, he can be offered back to the Cardinals at, I believe, $50,000. So, but Conor Thomas, lefty, a 5-pitch pitcher. He's part of a crew of 8 of 22 lefties the Brewers right now have in camp. And interesting that they brought him on. And we'll see if he makes the roster, stays on the team. But I like him. I always liked him with the Cardinals. Interesting player. Again, he had been on the Cardinals 40-man for a few years. And he was very grateful. He was talking in the locker room the other day about the opportunity the Cardinals had given him, but obviously he's not in their long-term plans in St. Louis, and we'll see how he works out in Milwaukee. I always call that Rule 5 pick the Graham Lloyd pick. Remember when this Rule 5 stuff started about 30 years ago, and the Brewers picked up the lefty Graham Lloyd, the Australian lefty, and he seemed to work out pretty well for a couple of years. But Conor Thomas, we'll have to take a wait and see kind of numbers he puts up here in spring training. I don't know if any of you all play Strat-o-matic baseball. With computers and all that and video games, I don't know if Strat-o-matic has faded into the spotlight, and it was a card game based on players, actual players. And it was on the statistics from last year's team. There's APPA, and there's like Strat-o-matic baseball. I'm sure there's a few other ones. I think there's one called Chase the Pennant from a guy who actually was in Brookfield. I think that happened like in the late 80s or so. But Strat-o-matic baseball. Again, I might be talking to the clouds on this one. Maybe nobody understands or knows what Strat-o-matic baseball is. But it was a game I played in my neighborhood growing up in Greendale as a kid. And we played Strat-o-matic baseball, football, basketball, although baseball was the crown jewel of the Strat-o-matic games. And when I was doing some reshuffling around my basement, I came across my Strat-o-matic baseball game, and I opened it up, and I saw cards in there from 1989, which would have been the last time I played Strat-o-matic. And all of a sudden, the blood started flowing a little bit, and I'm like, man, wouldn't it be good to play Strat-o-matic again? And I got on their website, and I ordered me the entire set of the 2025 cards. And I was looking in there, and it seems like a lot of people still play Strat-o-matic. Ordered my Strat-o-matic cards, and I just got the FedEx tracking number today that they should be here by Monday. But I remember as a kid, when you ordered the Strat-o-matic cards, and I would always order those for my birthday on January 20th. And that's about time when you could put your pre-order in. And when they were released, and this is back before the internet, when that UPS truck would drive down your street, it would be like, oh man, are those Strat-o-matic cards are here? That's going to be me Monday when that FedEx car comes rolling through my neighborhood. Looking forward to my Strat-o-matic cards, although they're not prorated like they used to. You got to kind of take them apart yourself, which I don't like. But sounds like Strat-o-matic baseball is alive and well. Drop me a note. You play Strat-o-matic baseball yet? If there's a league in Wisconsin here, I'd love to know about it. I played the basic version. I didn't play the advanced, but I'm going to get into the advanced. I mean, again, I haven't played in 35 years, 36 years or so, but uncovered my Strat-o-matic baseball game and went on their website and ordered the 2025 cards, and they're coming. They were just shipped earlier today, and I got the tracking number, and I'm one of those guys who always goes back to the tracking number and see, all right, where's my package? It's in New York. All right, it's in Connecticut. It's in Boston. Where is it? Oh, it's in Indianapolis. It's Chicago. It's getting closer. Oh, it's up in Appleton. Oh, here it is in Lomira, 10 houses down. I can't wait for Monday. Strat-o-matic baseball. Let me know again. Hit me up either on Twitter, Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND, or you could even drop me a note here on our YouTube page. I'm going to read some of your comments. We're going to give you some questions on some of your comments that you guys have regarding the early stages of the Milwaukee Brewers coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along here on a Friday afternoon. Big weekend here in our state. The state basketball playoffs are going on. I'll be out there covered a few games this weekend. And looking for my Strat-o-matic cards coming up on Monday. I'm just, I kind of wish those cards would come this weekend or so I could introduce my 13-year-old boy to Strat-o-matic. I kind of dropped it in his head last time he was here. So I was hoping those cards would come this weekend. But anyway, some questions that you guys have had out there regarding the Milwaukee Brewers. Andy says, good to see Oliver Dunn getting some playing time. He's got some pop in his bat, needs to cut down on the strikeouts. I thought he was good at third base last year for the month he was here, and we'll have to see where Durbin fits in with the scheme of things. Yeah, Dunn, through the first three weeks of the season last year, Dunn was great. I was like, man, Brewers got themselves a third baseman. And Sonny got a little injury there, and that was that. There was no more Oliver Dunn, and he did strike out a lot, like 40% of the time. So we'll see where Oliver Dunn, but there's a lot of people, including our guy Vinny Capra, who's vying for that third base spot. Yoho, we talked about his changeup a couple of episodes ago. Alan says, call it the Yoho instead of a changeup. It's funnier to say. We're looking for like that, the equivalent to the airbender that Devin Williams provided for the Brewers last year. The Yoho. I like it. Al. Andy says, Ernesto at first base. Is he the new Willie? Ernesto was pounded the ball the other day. He had a couple of hits. 6'6", 250, 260. Can Ernesto? He's like in his mid-20s as well. He too running out of time for a major league career. There's opportunities at first base, obviously, in the years to come at first base for the Milwaukee Brewers. Andy says that bullpen is super. I agree, Andy. That bullpen is super. And even though they've had some injuries to that bullpen, I think that bullpen is going to be fantastic this year. They have Jesus Matic in the minors, but he has a couple of years away. Ortiz is the best option now. He's talking about shortstop. Terang is the best second baseman in baseball, so he stays here. I agree. Like I said last episode, Terang stays at second base. Ortiz, move him over to short. And Matic, we'll see. Again, he's only 17 years old. It was cool to see him get in at bat the other day as well. Let's see here. Other notes. I know some of you guys come at me because I say Caleb Durbin only 5'6". I do think that matters. There's a couple of guys I know who are that short who've done great, and I always get the tweets or messages. Well, what about Altuve? Well, that's a 1 in 1,000 probably. Sass says whether he's 3'6", 4'6", or 5'6", none of that matters where Durbin is concerned. His low strikeout rate is huge, and he's always in the mix in the box score. Hits, walks, runs scored, stolen bases, RBIs. Watch and see. Now he's off to a 1 in 12 start, so he's not doing too much in the box score so far. But again, it's only spring training. But this is a proving ground for a guy like Kurt, because these teams, when you make the roster or you make the team, they base it on 4 or 5 weeks of spring training action. I don't, but it is. If you tear it up in spring, if Durbin goes out there, or like Vinny Capra's doing right now, if Capra continues to pound the ball like he's doing, and 3 of his 4 hits are home runs, he's going to make the team. That's just the way it works. He is going to make the team. Robert says it'll be interesting to see who ends up at third base. My guess is going to be a committee position. That's never good. Also, how they fill out the starting 5. I'm worried about the pen. I think there's going to be a little setback. One thing I'm worried about is Devin Williams not being here. Some of you guys don't feel that way. I feel very strongly that's a huge loss. We'll see if McGill can continue to carry the torch out there like he did last year with Devin on the injured list. Chuck, I'm worried about the outfield, says James. We're already down Perkins. We're already down Perkins out for a month. Yeah, I get it. The injury toll. Few guys have gotten hurt so far. Bukowskis, DL Hall came to camp. with an injury, a lat injury. Black won't be able to play until next week. He's got a back injury. And of course, Perkins, breaking his shin. Ouch. Yeah, Brewers can't afford any more injuries out there. Can't afford any injuries. I mean, like I've always said with the Milwaukee Brewers, the Brewers are playing with a team that has very little margin of error. And we're talking about Gold Glove type short. Let's face it, if Perkins played every day, he'd be a Gold Glove winner. You could argue even as a rotating outfielder last year, he could have won a Gold Glove. That's how great he is defensively. Now, offensively, not so much. But yeah, Perkins is a loss. But the Brewers, long as nobody else gets hurt, they should be able to cover up for the loss. And with Mark Canha on the team, yes. But hopefully Perkins is coming back very soon. Well, he's going to probably be out. Well, we'll see. He's not doing anything here for the next 3 weeks while his leg heals. Dave says, hopefully the Brewers get enough out of Hoskins that he becomes sought after and the Brewers are able to trade him at the deadline. Well, I don't want to trade him at the deadline if the Brewers are in a pennant race. I don't want to do that. If Hoskins produced 35 home runs, got this team to the postseason, they lost him to free agency, I can live with that. But I don't want to see the Brewers have Hoskins heat up and they're sellers. I'm not ready for the Brewers to be sellers at the deadline. I'll lose my mind because, man, we gotten used to winning right now. And you know what? I said this on Bill Michaels' show the other day. He asked me, when do I think fans will start getting upset about Attanasio not spending money? And I said, that has happened, but that would only ramp up, I would think, if the Brewers miss the playoffs this year and they don't make the playoffs. It's going to come back. Attanasio didn't do enough to fortify this team. Brewers bringing back Canha, says James. We're big spenders now. You bet. Got to do a minor league deal. I never wanted Canha to be traded in the first place last year. But Canha's back. James also says maybe Canha will be third base. No, don't think so. Upfield, first base, DH for Canha. House says, what's up with Gasser? Well, Gasser continues to rehab. Again, he's got Tommy John. And it sounds like Gasser might be able to throw in July a couple of innings, do some of that simulated stuff. And then maybe August. These pitchers are coming back quicker and quicker from that Tommy John. Back in the day, that was a 2-year death sentence. Maybe never come back. We'll see if Robert Gasser, what the timetable holds for him. But I had heard that maybe July. Ryan says, Hoskins, he is getting old. Not sure if he's still got it. He's in the prime of his career. He is in the prime of his career. I do not think, I think Hoskins still has got some better days ahead of him. I am not worried. Well, I shouldn't say that. Prime of his career still, I think. But Hoskins, for his career, to get that big contract, he needs a big year. For the Brewers to be in the pennant race this year, he needs to have a big year. I think Hoskins, another year removed from that knee surgery that he had 2 years ago, I see those numbers coming up. He can't be hitting 214. 26 bombs, I want to see that turn into 36. The 84 or 85 RBIs, I'd like to see that turn into 100 RBIs. If that's the case, the Brewers need to have production to make up for Willy Adames. And a guy like Hoskins needs to do it. They're paying him $18 million. That's like the Yankees paying somebody $50 million. Okay? The Brewers paying somebody $18 million. He needs to produce. Yelich needs to produce. Jackson Chourio has to continue to do Jackson Chourio things. And third base has to solve. The bullpen's got to be great. Starting pitching. A number of things. As we always say with the Milwaukee Brewers, this margin of error is very, very small with the Milwaukee Brewers. Hey, everybody, you get our podcast on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your audio podcast. We're on all the audio platforms out there. You guys make us the #1 Brewers podcast on the internet. And of course, when any Brewers news ever breaks, we will be right back here in the Lockdown studio talking Brewers baseball with you. And of course, our growing YouTube page, search Lockdown Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That alerts you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. For you Brewer fans looking for some more baseball news, go to your second listen every day, Locked On MLB. Make Locked On Brewers your first listen. Locked On MLB. My guy Sully's got all the spring training news. I'm there here in the next week or two talking some Brewers baseball with our guy Sully. It's going to do it for me, Chuck Freeman. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Have yourself a great weekend, everybody.